Hello, this is Steve Reed and I'm recording this video for Shiva at the convenience store. I've dilly-dallied a little bit on putting this together. I wasn't getting the pull to do it. I think when I look at that, it was because something happened, there's no doubt about it, and I call it awakening, and when I read other stuff, it all relates and measures up to the sort of descriptions other people do give. But there was quite literally zero path. I've not, in fact, to be honest with you, even recording this now, I haven't really got any idea what Shiva is. I know about Buddha nature because everything I read after the opening pulled me towards Buddhism, so I've read all that, but I haven't really got any idea what Shiva is. But my guess is it's on a similar theme. And yeah, so when I describe what happened, it's kind of so out of what appears to be the norm that I was not getting the pull to do the video because it just felt almost like it didn't fit in. However, I've come to the point now where it probably does need to be out there, just if anything, just to show that openings can happen in extremely spontaneous circumstances and without any particular practice, path, or whatever the usual terminology is in spirituality. So what I'm going to do, I've tried to lay it out into a few parts so it makes a bit of logical sense. So I'll talk a tiny bit about what led up to the opening, and then I'll talk about what actually happened, and then a little bit about what I think that means day to day for living, basically. So I've had a very normal life, nothing troubled, no drugs, no issues, no addictions, anything that you'd sort of say was troublesome. Met a wonderful wife in my 20s, got two beautiful daughters, always had good job, good security and a lovely house. So, you know, I never really, and I've always been a positive thinker, so nothing really has ever troubled me, and I would say that there was nothing I was searching for, nothing I was looking for. I seemed to have everything keep on arriving on a plate, and it was a very generous, beautiful life to live. And I was quite happy being me and living this life. So there was no spark, there was no sort of what is more, is there more to this? How do I get out of this suffering? All that sort of stuff. Literally, that spark wasn't there. However, I have all my life been a contemplator. Very much asking big questions like how big is the universe, how small can things go if you keep on looking inside of something and then look inside of that and then look inside of that and then look inside of that. That fascinated me more than how big, to be honest. It's what will you find, what's in there. Something is always made up of something, and that used to always play on my mind. And you know, I'd read a lot of stuff around that, science books and watch videos and whatnots. I've always loved rock music, indie rock music mainly, goth actually, back in the 80s. And that, when I reflect, also has relevance because there's a particular band called The Mission. If you're in the UK, you might have heard of them. If you're in America, probably not. But there was one opening line on one of their very early hits in the 80s, and it was a spoken line when Wayne Hussey says, "I still believe in God, but God no longer believes in me." And it always used to fascinate me, just what did he mean by that? And I think of all sorts of scenarios. Does he mean God's given up on him? All sorts of things, but it was never clear from the song. When you listen to the song, it was just that opening line was fed in, the opening line on the album. I've also been a big fan of U2, and anybody who follows U2 will know that they have strong Christian roots, and that flavours a lot of their lyrics in their songs as well. And the early songs used to fascinate me because I've always loved lyrics. I'm drawn to music by the tune, the style, if it's rock, but I always listen to the lyrics because I love to think what was behind those words, what's driving it, what are they trying to get across. And there's a couple of U2 songs that I've always pondered over, and one is A Day Without Me. It starts off with the line, I've started a landslide in my ego, and the song just continues with A Day Without Me. And there's another song which is on their War album, which is called Surrender. And there's a lovely line in that as well, which I always used to wonder over. And it goes, if I'm going to live, I've got to die to myself someday. And again, it's almost like a riddle. But I think, what does Bono mean? And there's countless other stuff that I used to listen to with all these sort of riddles and odd lyrics and things in there. So you could say that was a bit of a path and linked with a contemplative mind like I've got. That would play and I'd think about those sort of things. The other thing that I think might be relevant is just prior to this opening at the back end of 2011 in December, I was in an incredibly fearful state, which was a little bit unusual for me because I say I've usually been a very positive thinker and quite relaxed about life really. But the banking crisis had kicked in big time, and the relevance of that is obviously I had a young family and I also worked in banking, so I could see it more on the coalface of what was happening. And as I was the one who's got to support the family, I was beginning to get incredibly concerned that there was going to be a complete financial global meltdown and that there would be no way of putting food on the table because the whole financial system would collapse, money would be worthless, we'd be back to bartering. There could be riots on the streets, people fighting you over a loaf of bread, all of that sort of stuff. And I was getting really concerned. And I was thinking about how I'm going to buy gold and where I'm going to put it and how I can actually make sure our family's protected. And yeah, I was really, really getting quite panicky about it all. And another relevant factor is I was very, very much into the Illuminati and what they were kind of doing to us all, and the brainwashing and the everything through the television is trying to control you, and lots and lots of stuff like that. I was really into that. Conspiracy theories around 9/11, and I'd watch videos and videos and videos, and of course that was just getting me a little bit them and us victim sort of mindset as well. So yeah, I was in a funny place, a bit miserable really, but nothing, not depression, nothing like that. Just I was a regular guy, regular job, just a little bit bogged down by the sort of responsibilities of life at that particular time. Anyway, the only other thing that's relevant is all my life I've had a heart condition, a physical heart condition, not the spiritual heart condition, whereby it would spontaneously just beat at 300 beats a minute and quite erratic as well. It was really crazy. And it would actually feel like it's coming out of your chest and it would actually shake your body. So not a pleasant experience when it happens. If it wasn't stopped, because I could stop it just by pushing here, but if it wasn't stopped, you'd start to get very lightheaded. You'd lose the sensation in your arms and legs and all a bit weird really. And that started in my teens. And doctors then just put it down to stress, but as medical science progressed, they got better understandings of what it was, and it was eventually diagnosed as something called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, which is just to do with the electrical pathways in the heart, where it goes down the wrong channels and then just fires the chambers all in the wrong fashion. So that was back in my teens. All through my life I put up with it, odd episodes. But finally by 2011 and modern science, I was offered the opportunity to have some keyhole surgery and something called an ablation, which is where they just go in and they burn the troublesome fibres to stop them conducting electricity. And then the electrical pulses can no longer go down that path. so therefore you should have a normal heart experience and it shouldn't trip into these weird episodes anymore. So that was the idea. Me being a bit nervous, I'd put the operation off a couple of times, but thinking I could self-manage it or find some other way to sort of control it or just stop it like this. But it was getting to the point where it was really troublesome. So I agreed to the operation back in December 2011. And the next relevant part, sorry if I go all over the place here on this, but the next relevant part is quite literally the day before the operation. I'm watching a lot of Illuminati stuff, as I do, and another video, you know, like YouTube recommends things to watch based on what you've been watching. But it came up with this video called The Quickening, and I think it was subtitled Awakening as One. And it starts off with all the stuff that I was interested in, you know, how crazy the world's getting, how we're controlled, how you know, there's powers at play that we don't understand, etc., etc. But then it did start to move into some of the more spiritual stuff, and I watched it all, and at the end it was suggesting that we're all going to awaken as one, and there are no separate identities or things along that line. And I remember speaking to my mum, because she wanted to speak to me before the operation. And I remember vividly telling her about this video and saying, I don't like that video. That's really, it's not up my street. It's saying that we're going to awaken as this one being and realise we're one being. And I said, I don't like that. I like being me. Why would I want to lose me? This is, no. And she agreed. I mean, she was right on my page. You know, what a stupid load of nonsense. But that was the night before I went in for this operation. So, day of operation, usual apprehension that we all feel, a little bit of anxiety. And brilliant surgeon, does all his bedside manner, very calming. But he explained to me that where he's going to burn in the heart is extraordinarily close, potentially, to the heart's natural pacemaker. And if he burns or has to burn too close, it could damage the heart's natural pacemaker, and they'll have to quickly put an artificial pacemaker in, which is fine. But I, at the time, and still am now, a competing runner, and I didn't like the sound of an artificial pacemaker. I like the fact that I can regulate my heart naturally, the way the human body should, and it just didn't seem to fit well. So I said, if it gets too close, can you let me know, and I'll give you the go-ahead. How arrogant is that? So we went in, he visited, what I should say as well, sorry, I'm jumping about. When you have this operation, it's under local anaesthetic, it's keyhole, and you can see all of the workings of the inside of your heart on a massive plasma screen television. Really fascinating. But anyway, the surgeon's gone in and he's found the area of the heart where the trouble should be for Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, and he can't find any troublesome fibres at all. So he's about to give up, and he thinks, well, I'll have a look and I'll see if there's any other areas of the heart where there could be problems. And he has a look right in the centre where the natural pacemaker is, and sure enough, that's where he finds the trouble. Completely different condition to what they'd labelled me before, but that didn't matter. But, of course, he had to say, well, Mr. Reed, it's exactly on your pacemaker. And I know you had concerns about that, but I'm quite confident I can do it. I mean, it's not a problem for me. Are you okay for me to go ahead? Now, I had been somebody who believed he had control and was very, very controlling of my, in controlling quotes, of my life circumstances. So for me to actually say, yes, go on, go ahead, please do it, I do remember was an absolute leap of faith. But I did, obviously. And I mean, gosh, I'm embarrassed to look back and suggest that I was even telling a skilled surgeon to pause because I thought I knew better. I mean, I can't believe I had that approach, but that's how arrogant I was. Anyway, 3 to 5 seconds later, he's finished, gives a massive punch to the air, obviously a good day at the office for him, and he proclaims, "You're fixed." Pauses for a little while, and then he says, "Well, you're fixed, but you're still a boring bank manager." Now, I thought that was a weird thing to say straight after the operation, but obviously it didn't faze me. But there is relevance later on to what he said there. So, straight after the heart operation, which was obviously a success, as we just said, I'm being wheeled back to the place where you all are, a ward, that's it, back to the ward. And there was something different. And it's all I described it to everybody was, wow, there's just such peace here. It's just palpable. At the time, I put it all down to elation that the operation went well and the like, but it was just complete peace, serenity. There was nothing to worry about in life anymore or ever. It's just indescribable. So that was literally straight after the operation. So I just told a few people, I told the doctor as well, I said, and he said, "Oh, that's good, yep, well, that's probably just you're happy that the operation went well and you're just a bit relieved," so, which is fine, that's what I thought it was. But it didn't go away all through the night, and the next day, hold on, the phone's ringing. Okay, I'm back, and I hope this has some continuity because that's going out to the phone. The next day afterwards, I was doing my usual, having a little look around at videos and whatnot. I didn't have the same drive. It was still a fascination to have a look at them about the Illuminati. And it was during one of those that, for the briefest of moments, how can I describe this? It just felt like things stopped. And I'm not even talking for as long as a second, like a millisecond, but there was an overwhelming sense that we're making this all up. That was all it was. It just felt like we're making this all up. And coupled with that, again, this is the only way I can describe it, it felt like I suddenly knew stuff. I'm not saying it was like a download or any, it wasn't in English, it was just, I just felt like we're making this all up and I know stuff that I didn't used to know. And I can't even tell you what it was I thought I knew, but it just felt like that's the way I can describe it. We're making it up, and I now know stuff. So that was a weird moment, but that's all that was. Trying to get this all in the right order, to be honest. I haven't cast my mind back to this period for such a long time. What I do remember next, though, is that we went away for Christmas. I was stupid enough to tell my family that I'd had this sudden thought that we're making this all up and none of us are real and this is all imagination and it's not really reality, it's just like a dream or whatever. I don't know what words I was using, but it was probably a mistake because I didn't really know what I was talking about. I just knew I knew it. And of course, they've now got crazy dad and a crazy husband to deal with. Thankfully, they just took it with a sort of pinch of salt, although I think it was beginning to get to my wife somewhat. But there was a plus. I was all of a sudden very peaceful, very jovial, very happy, very relaxed. Didn't mention about buying gold or panicking about the financial crisis anymore. So although they got crazy Stephen, they got happy Stephen. So I think that balanced out. So we had a great Christmas. And we went back to normal stuff in January. And I remember, this is the next relevant part, 2 days into going back to work, 3 days maybe, I pulled up on the driveway of the house and again, I paused, I was sitting in the car and the thought came, what is the point of thoughts? And the next thought from that was, where do thoughts go? And it kind of, I had this riddle going on in my head. Am I thinking thoughts to something, or am I the something that is aware of the thoughts? I don't know why this triggered, but I say I've been a contemplator all my life, so maybe it was just that wiring just triggered in all of a sudden. And straight away, it was crystal clear that I'm the one that is aware of the thoughts. And immediately from that, I was just looking around and looking. I remember there was obviously birds flying around and there was nature. And I thought, I don't know if birds think, but if they do, it's the same thing in that bird that is aware of what the bird is deciding it wants to do. And it's just immediately, I just thought, it's like, I just laughed because it seemed simple and it was bizarre as well, because everything is this awareness. And I'm just looking behind me, and I can remember, I'm looking behind me in the car and I'm seeing some neighbours walk past with their dog, and I'm thinking, you're this awareness in there as well, and the dog is. And, well, and it's not something that I needed to doubt. I wasn't thinking to myself, is this just crazy? You knew it. Once you knew it, you knew it. You didn't have to sort of doubt yourself and say, oh, did somebody tell you this? Or have you got things confused or whatever? You just knew it was true. And it's magical. So when I go indoors, this time I thought this is a bit too big to just bulldoze in and tell my wife. That was the thought that came to me, because I'd had that episode where they thought I was really crazy before Christmas. And to now tell her that she's me and I'm her, and my daughters are us, and I couldn't put it into words, but so I kept it myself for a little while. And I thought, well, the best thing I can do is just write this all down, because I think if I start talking and babbling, I'm not going to make any sense and it's going to freak them out. So I wrote down what I just labelled the way it is, and I just grabbed a pen and just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote everything that I could think of that come to mind, now that I knew it was all made up and we are the awareness. And it was rough and ready. It was just real rough and ready stuff, but it was all about the false self and how we are selfish because we think we're separate and individuals, and we've got to fight our way in the world, and it's the world, us against the world. And as I'm writing it, I can see how intensely selfish I've been all my life. If somebody asked me to borrow my sat-nav, I would probably say, oh no, I need it, because, even though I didn't, because I thought they were going to break it. And if they break it, it's going to be awkward. And I don't know, it's a silly example, but all these things rushed in. I could just see overwhelmingly, oh my God, what a selfish person you've been all your life. But it didn't matter, because I knew why. It was just, we're all selfish if we believe we're separate. And when I say selfish, I mean small selfish. You know what I mean, don't you? You know the terminology. So I'm writing this all down, and it was stuff about what we've just been talking about. And it was about 4 pages. And I'm really glad I wrote it down, because I then shared it with my sister, my wife, and it was far easier for them to read that, and not saying they understood, they still thought it was nonsense, but there was something, they could read it, and there was obviously something in them that related to it, even though my wife didn't like it. She said, I don't like the way you're going, this is really abnormal, and all sorts of things. It was an uncomfortable time, which I'll come on to, but it was easier to give something to read than me talk about it. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And the other benefit is, I got to a point now that I thought, I didn't think I was going mad. I really didn't. In fact, I knew I wasn't going mad, because I'd gone out of my mind, and that's the best thing to do, go out of your mind. But I couldn't find anybody that read that and thought, yeah, that's on the money, that's right. Nobody was. They were just saying, well, it's deep. It makes you think a bit. I'll get some of that. But the bit about being the awareness and all of us being the awareness, nobody bought into that. It was just like, well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, okay, whatever. And I needed to know whether this is normal anywhere else. Does anybody think like this? I mean, I can't be the only person who thinks like this. Surely not. So I was drawn, W.H. Smith's, I was just drawn. Something said Buddhism is the truth. That's all it said in my head. And I was drawn to books on Buddhism, and I ferociously just read everything I could get to grips with. Or anything that came in, I was Googling, watching videos on Buddhism, everything under the sun. And it was lovely because I could see in there, clear as day, mirrors of exactly how I saw things. And it's delightful because, well, my hunger since has been, I love to hear truth spoken of. I mean, hence all the back gap videos and interviews, countless other stuff, everything I've read, The Power of Now, the Bhagavad Gita, everything has been because I just love reading more and more and more the same thing. I'm not trying to find anything. I just want to hear it, and it's lovely. But having had all that written down, and I was reading about Buddhism and things, I still wanted to speak to somebody who understood. And this is where it was very fortuitous to have something written down, because I went to my local vicar, the Christian Protestant church in Essex, where I am. And he's a brilliant vicar because he's very open-minded. And I just said, can I come round for a cup of tea, please? I just want to share something with you because I think you'll have an angle on it and some ideas and thoughts which I'd really value. And I gave it to him, and he sat down and he read it, and you could sense he was reading it different to how everybody else had read it. He was really, really reading it. And when he finished and paused, he just said, this is the start of an awakening. And then we had this most beautiful conversation for a couple of hours about all the Bible and Jesus and all sorts. And it was the first time the terminology awakening had come to my attention, even though I'd read the Buddhist books. I didn't really understand what not the process, although it does feel like a process of deepening and of more and more awakening. But that word really it means something. It encapsulates something. Or it did at the time when the vicar said it. Anyway, it kind of made more sense. So I'm waffling there because I'm just reflecting back to sitting with the vicar there, and it's something magical. Something magical. And he's such an open-minded, great bloke, our vicar. Anyway, he suggested, why don't you come on the Alpha course, and you can chat to other people, because he had an Alpha course starting very, very soon. For those of you who don't know what an Alpha course is, it's a Christian course where you sit down, you go through Mark, and you just talk in small groups with the vicar about what it means. You watch a few videos, all sorts of things. So I went on that, and I loved it, because I've never understood anything from the Bible before. Not that I've really read anything, but anything I've ever heard or has come to my attention just seemed like absolute riddles. But to hear it all now, it just absolutely made crystal sense. And it was so delightful to talk to other people as well, because although I got a sense they've still believed themselves to be separate and they were searching for God and God was outside of them and all of that, it was still, the energy of that group was beautiful. And there was something in the Alpha course which makes me realise that the universe, or God, or whatever we want to call the entirety, has got a great sense of humour, because the Christians talk of a heart condition that we've all got, and we can't fix it ourselves. That's their kind of message. It's a heart condition which we would liken to perhaps being attached to the belief in separation. And they say it can't be fixed ourselves. We need grace to fix our heart condition. Now, this is where I think the universe has got such a brilliant sense of humour, because the surgeon that fixed my heart condition physically was Dr. Andrew Grace. I think that's funny anyway. Maybe you don't, but I think it's funny. So they talk very, very much about that, and I actually like the Christian path, or the words of Jesus. I think the Christianity possibly is, most people find it a bit, not confusing, but the only way is Jesus gets in the way, I think. And I know that my sister and a few other, I mean, I don't want to make too much comment about Christianity, but I know that they get really hung up that Christianity is the only way and Jesus is the only way. And when I mention Buddhism and when I mention meditation, it absolutely freaks my sister out, and she thinks I'm the devil and I'm going to go to hell, and she's really, 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 really sad. So I think that, and I see that in a lot of Christians, they do look at me especially, and they pity my soul, and I find that's the only thing I'd say about the UK Christian church anyway. It seems to be causing them a bit of torment. Right, I'm going to pause for a second because I just need to have a break, and then hopefully this will continue. Hello, I'm back. What I'd like to quickly talk about is the other things that happened straight after that awareness recognition or whatever. A few weird experiences. I mean, I could lucid dream just very quickly. I enjoy lucid dreaming as well, but I didn't really use it to its full potential. I just went flying, and now if you do lucid dream and you fly and you crash into pigeons, it actually hurts. That's something I learned. Totally irrelevant to the spiritual path, I know, but it does hurt. Had a few, I don't know if they're out-of-body experiences, but I just know I was hovering above the bed and screaming at my wife to come flying or come out of her body as well, and she couldn't hear me because obviously she wasn't in the same state. So some weird things like that. These are kind of irrelevant, but I'm just saying a whole barrage of these sort of things happened. But I was overwhelmingly drawn to meditation even before I'd read any of those books I was telling you about on Buddhism. This was like literally straight after that awareness thing, or actually I can't remember. It might have been before that. It might have been straight after the operation. I was just drawn to meditation, but I didn't even know what meditation is or how to do it. I just naturally sat, eyes closed, didn't have to focus on the breathing or anything, and I'm incredibly fortunate because there just wasn't any thoughts anyway. I mean, it's not like I had to sort of do any practice. I mean, I didn't know what meditation is, so there's nothing I could have tried to practice. I just sat quiet and closed my eyes, and yes, lovely blue lights and a weird sensation of being sucked out the front of your head and sort of thrown out everywhere. That's, I guess, the way I describe it anyway. So I quite enjoyed meditating for that reason. It just was something I wanted to do, felt right, and so I did it. I mean, I wasn't trying to get anything out of meditation. It just felt the right thing to do following this whole experience. And I still meditate today. I don't get the sucking out of my head things so much. I just kind of meditate. I don't know why I meditate, to be honest. I think it's one of those things that I don't do it for any reason. but if I don't do it, it feels like there's something missing, if that makes any sense at all. So meditation was a key part that came in. I've had difficulty telling other people about this, so poems seem to be my way, and I wrote hundreds of poems. Sort of not what I would say beautiful poems, not the sort of abstract, metaphorically speaking, wandering aimlessly as a cloud sort of stuff, but very sort of practical poems. Like I would write things that some people said almost read like cognitive behavioural therapy, all about how you see a situation is the reality of the situation rather than the actual reality. Yeah, I mean they're all out there. I can't really describe, but they were relevant, but more relevant probably to me because it was as things were sort of insights were coming. I think, oh my gosh, yes, that's what we do, don't we? So I scribble all that down in the poem as well, or a verse. A verse is probably a better description, and also some odd artwork. Actually, I'll show you the artwork because that's quite easy. So I'll pause for a second. Right, there you go. This cat is what I call wisdom, because when I look at that cat, I see wisdom. You'll see whatever you want to see, but there you go. Let's get the light off. This bird is, I don't know what, you'll see what you want to see in that, but for me it's like humble, and yeah, humble. This one down here is, well, the idea when I was drawing it is the peacock is kind of then repeated, and if I had a better pen it would have been repeated again and again and again, because that's like the sort of that thing I was saying about how small can you go and what's things made up of and what things made up of, and it kind of, that says to me that it never ends. It's like infinite. It's just, yeah, that's what that one says. And then over here we have what I refer to as happiness. That's my happy horse, and that's happiness for you. There you go. Back again. Something else I did, I also set up a page on Facebook called Conscious Awareness Thoughts, and that was in 2012. That was very early on, and the idea of that page was I wanted to share. It's such a wonderful thing. There's no doubt about it. At least I think it is. And I wanted to share, and I wanted to sort of share the poems, share thoughts, and really so that if anybody read it, that it might just trigger the same thing, I don't know, or give them the chance to get the same perspective, or whatever we call awakening, whatever it is. But that was the whole point of Conscious Awareness Thoughts, was just to share and share and share. And I still do contribute to that page now and again, and any insight or any idea I get or any thought that comes I think's beautiful, I just share it on there. So it's my own little chronology of awakening, as it were. What do I think now? Where am I now? I do think awakening, or an opening of, or the beginning of awakening, does change. I'm going to say you. I mean, behaviour. There's no doubt about it. I am far more giving people freedom, and I'm far more sharing. I do feel, I know this is going to sound contrary to the way we talk, or the way we're allowed to talk in spiritual terms, but I feel like a better person. The way I live my life, the way I interact, I feel far, far, far more happier with how I act in the world than I used to do. And I say I'm not blaming how I used to act, or looking at myself in any way that I think I need to beat myself up. But I just like the way I act now. I do think I can act a lot better, and I do think I've got a long way to go in integration or bringing this to life. And the way I see it here is I like to think of enlightenment as just that moment of pure clarity. That'll be when I knew everything was awareness, it was undoubted, I know this is the truth, I know I'm that, I know I am peace, I don't have to be peaceful. Complete clarity. And then, this is why I loved what the vicar said about awakening, and the words he said were at the beginning of an awakening. Because the way I see it is, awakening is growth with no destination. I think even Rick uses that terminology sometimes. We're all a work in progress, and I love. In fact, when I watched the Buddha at the gas pump stuff, I love all the guests, but it's Rick, funnily enough, that I tend to resonate with most. And if I could, of all the people that I've seen and news editors' picks, we don't want that. Of all the people I've seen interviewed or see speak on this actual subject, Rick is the closest to what I say I sort of resonate with. So I do see awakening as a process of growth, and it's kind of not something that I think I'm going to get somewhere. It's just something that in every moment I can bring more of myself, my true self, to the moment. And I don't always bring my true self to the moment, if that makes sense. I may have intention, I may have the desire to bring more and more truth, but I put myself in my own way. I interrupt the flow, and I interrupt the flow far less than I used to, but conscious awareness for me is the being aware of the you in your own way, if that makes any sense. I'm just saying this as it I can't put it into exact words, but maybe some of you will understand what I mean by that. I mean, the best examples are with family. It's very easy, I find, to be awake or demonstrate, complete lack of separation with, so sorry, a little bit of interruption there. Yes, I mean, the way I see it, the world is a reflection of us, because it can't be anything other than that. And really, I just need to keep on seeing and not getting caught up in the falsity. Now, when I say that, I do get caught up in falsity from time to time. It's seen very, very, very quickly, and I can go and apologise for my behaviour, but I maybe total 100% awakening is a point where you only ever operate as the self. But I do constantly put myself in my own way. I do see it, and especially with my wife and my daughters, that's probably the most obvious time. And my most obvious conditioning to be unwound, I guess, is around finances. I've worked in banking all my life. I've seen how debt can destroy lives. And I have this programming in my brain that I think we're going to overspend and we're going to be in all sorts of trouble if we do. So often anything my wife and daughters say that involves money triggers me. And a lot of the time, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't go as far as my actions, but I can see the triggering. But if I'm tired and exhausted, then it goes as far as the actions as well. And I can see almost as quickly as I've said something that I'm just believing that I'm separate from the whole world, and I've got to do I'm just back to my old, that self hasn't gone away. Or the energy or the bundle of thoughts or whatever you want to call it hasn't completely gone away. And sometimes I live that, but I can quickly see that it's not true. And I can then make amends, apologise, give them a hug, whatever, I don't know. But that's really for me what awakening is about here, is where the rubber meets the road. It's just every interaction, every step I take, every phone call, every person who serves me in a shop, every time my daughter asks for more money, every time it's pouring with rain and I've got to go out and do my gardening job. It's watching what comes out and what thoughts arise, and then consciously being truth and less getting caught up in the non-reality. Yeah, that's the best way I can put it. Now, it could be I'm at the earliest stages of awakening, and I'm sure that probably is the case. But it's, yeah, conscious awareness for me is the biggest thing that I kind of try to bring to every situation, and it's beautiful when it is, because it's in unity and operating from integrity, and it's clumsy and sometimes a bit painful when I work outside of that and I behave outside of that. Just to close, I'm going to just talk about that. I think awakening and this whole opening thing does change lives, for sure. I'm still with my wife, God bless her. She stuck with me through all the craziness. She still thinks I'm balmy. She hasn't bought into any of this at all. But we've got, she just knows that that's the way I talk, and she lives her life the way she lives her life, which is absolutely fine. My two daughters, they're into philosophy, and they're also from obviously a different generation, and some of what I say they kind of get and they kind of like, and but they totally don't buy into the whole awakening business. It does change, or did change, my career. I was in banking. Straight after this, banking didn't feel right. It's the Buddhist talk of right vocation, and pushing loans and the personal agendas that everybody seems to follow in banking, in retail banking in the UK anyway, around got to get their own personal targets, they've got to achieve their own goals, they've got to get promoted, they've got to earn their biggest bonuses they can at the end of the year. I mean, that changed a little bit. It went a little bit more integrity and values for a while, but it soon swung back round again to an organisation or a career that just didn't fit. So I just looked at, what do I love doing? I love being outside. I love being in nature. I love running. I love helping people run, because I find it's a very invigorating exercise, and often involves being out in the fields and nature and freedom. So I became a gardener and a running coach. And one of the lovely things about this whole thing of, I couldn't have set myself up as a gardener before, because I would have thought, well, I don't know enough, I haven't got enough knowledge, I'm going to not be as good as the other gardeners, nobody's going to want to employ me, I need to be an expert gardener before I could even take the leap of faith and leave banking, etc., etc., etc. But I just thought, well, gardening feels right, there's nothing about it feels wrong, it sits perfectly with me. And do you know what? Every client I took on, I just went up to them and I said, I actually haven't got any background in this, I haven't got any horticultural exams, I have got practically no knowledge beyond your standard stuff you build up from your own garden. But I learn quick, I'm willing to learn. And every one of them just said, well, that's brilliant honesty. There's nothing you can do that's going to harm my garden because it'll all grow back as far as they were concerned. And I just got work and work and work and work and work. I've never had to push it, advertise it. It's just referrals, referrals, referrals from day one. So I get the sense that if we do something that we are meant to be doing, we're supported naturally. Everything lines up and it just falls into place. And I know that I wasn't meant to be in banking because it was always hard graft. It was, I never got referrals. It was just a clumsy, hard work. I know I rose up the ranks, had a great job, really good job, but it was always pushing upstream. Whereas now, literally, it's just everything conspires to make gardening easy. And I have days when I'm in the sunshine, sitting on a drive-on lawnmower, absolutely the luckiest man on the planet, and I can't believe what job I've landed into. And the rest of my time I spend running coaching, which is my other absolute passion. And so I actually get paid for taking people on trail runs across the countryside and helping them to become better runners. So absolutely fallen into exactly the round peg in the round hole that I feel like this being should be. And I think that's a consequence of awakening. I think we do find our natural, what we're meant to be doing in the world, if we are open to it. So I hope everybody finds that and is doing what they're meant to be doing. That was another pause because my new Garmin watch just turned up in the post, so I'm even happier. I think that's where I'm going to close because I just felt like I needed to put this video out there, add it to the collection as it were, just to give a bit of variety in the sort of awakening stories. Make of it what you will. As I say, I've deliberated and been a bit dilly-dallying about making this video, but I'm glad I did, and I've just let it ramble on as it comes out. So thanks for watching, if you watched this far. Can I leave you with just one poem, if that's okay? When we are just being, there is no sense of doing. When we sense that we are doing, we have forgotten to just be. If this reads like a riddle, then mind is playing the fiddle, and you are placed in the middle of what you now cannot see. If you're not the middleman doer, you can see through a different viewer, because you now no longer obscure and no longer get in your own way. You can play with these words forever, and mind will suggest they're not clever, but your heart will never say never, as it knows this is how it wants to be. Thanks for watching.